Time for another edition of Jay's Sports Bar, and another special guest joins us. Jeramiah Dickey, the fan favorite of Bronco Nation. How are we doing?
I'm doing well, man. Good morning.
One of my favorite things to ask is, since this is Jay's Sports Bar, what is your favorite drink? You guys won the Mountain West Conference Championship. You finally settled down. What's your favorite drink?
You know, I'm simple, man. I've gotten beer, in general, but as I get older, I realize, I look at a beer and I gain weight. So
Amen.
I got to be careful. I'm not a young buck anymore.
Yeah, you're not. You've been here for a few years now.
I have, yeah.
What's it like walking into the office today versus, 4 years ago? A little over 4 years ago now.
Yeah, it's the level of confidence I have, maybe. It doesn't mean I know everything, but I know enough to be dangerous. There's always that inherent fear of the unknown. And after 4 years of everything that we've navigated, I mean, there's not much that hits my desk now that I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It's like, all right, we've navigated this. And so walking in, you're confident, you're excited. There's a different level of energy. We're making progress across 18 sports and coming off of a Fiesta Bowl and, last night's huge win. And you had men's tennis beating Indiana. That's their second Big Ten win. Softball beat BYU, a Big 12 team. I believe rankings just came out for gymnastics and they're back in the rankings. It's excitement. We have a lot of opportunity ahead of us and to be a part of that and be a part of a team, that's why we do this.
Yeah, I want to ask you about, sports here in a second, but where do you get your sayings from? I know enough to be dangerous. You have another, everything counts, everything matters. I mean, you have a number of them here. But where do you get these from?
Yeah, it's
particularly I know enough to be dangerous.
Probably from mentors and just people you pick up on sayings, and so a lot of them are probably from Mac or Hunter or people I spend a lot of time with, and it's funny how they change. I have gotten better. It's kind of a running joke in my family. My mom and I, we say sayings incorrectly. And, my dad would make fun of us and we would say it with confidence. And if you say it with confidence, a lot of people are like, yeah, a dog does bark down the wrong tree, and it's like, that's not the saying. So, I think I read a lot and a lot of leadership books and listen to a lot of podcasts. And I think you just pick up things along the way.
How has life kind of changed for you? Is the pace slowing down? Is it picking up? Are you just knowing how to navigate everything better now that you probably don't have to pull out your GPS every time you go somewhere in Boise?
I still do that, Jay. I still put my address to get home.
We're 10 minutes from you and you had to figure it out.
That's right. That's right. I wouldn't say the speed's actually picked up, but I think I'm managing it better. I'm much more efficient, organized. As I said, I've been here for 4 years now, and so who to go to and when, and I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in life, and you prioritize appropriately. And, and ultimately I can control a couple things: my attitude, my energy, and my work ethic. And, I've really honed in on that. There's peaks and valleys in this, and there are good and bad days. But everyone's looking at you as the leader, and and so I do feel a different level of confidence and strength, I guess, in the experiences that I've had, that I can show up for how people need me to show up. And it doesn't mean I'm perfect, and I have bad days. God knows this job can it takes a lot from you. But at the same time, it's so there's a relief factor that I can call a Coots or a Cody or and say, hey, I need you to do this, and they're doing it. And my wife is connected in the community, and she doesn't always necessarily need me to hey, you need to be home by a certain time because I have to go pick up one of the kids. She has friends, and so the longer I'm here, the more the more your roots grow, I guess, and and the more comfortable you feel. So,
what goes back when you kind of look at those first pictures of you and your family on the blue? And some of your little boys, some of them were really, really young, and now you look at them and they're not as young, that's for sure. So to have, you recently agreed to a contract extension, that to have a longer runway, kind of know the future, kind of understand what the future means for your family. What does all that kind of mean to you?
Well, the contract, it relieved a lot of pressure. When you're the breadwinner and in an industry that you accept that one day they love you, the next day they'll hate you. and that's okay. It relieved a lot of pressure, as you got closer to the end. And as an AD, when you get under that 2-year mark, that can be challenging. And so really grateful to get that to the finish line and everyone who helped in that process. I get home last night, and obviously it was a late game and my kids are asleep, and I always go in and hug and kiss them, when I get home, because that's important to me. And my 6-year-old, who in that picture, couldn't say but a few words.
Yeah.
And, and I kiss, and he pops up and he says, "Did we win? And what was the score?" And he was bummed that he couldn't go to the game. And, it's that chapter of life when they were younger, when we got here, was amazing. But, you're a dad, like every chapter is just as good, if not better. Mm-hmm. And the fact that they're embracing Boise and skiing, we were skiing this weekend, and their friends and Broncos, they love Boise State. That means a lot to me, and they get to experience a lot of what I get to experience, and they're spoiled because they get a lot of access. And, my hope is that they appreciate that when they're older, but it hits you in the heart. Like my daughter just turned 11. She's going to visit the middle school, it's amazing how quickly time flies and how much they grow in that process.
At least we know now which son is most like you, probably. Springing up in the middle, like, do we win?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, it was an epic game. You're going to be really mad that you missed it.
He's a piece of work, man.
I also saw that you guys went sledding the other day.
Yeah.
You posted a little video of it where really picturesque scene, and then a deer entered the picture.
Yeah.
Dude, he was coming to get you. He's going to get Eli. Eli, what is he doing?
I'm not going to lie, though. There was a moment where I was worried like the deer was going to ram one of your children.
Oh, I thought he was going to run you over, dude.
So if you notice in that video, like the 6-year-old's going down the hill,
yeah,
and he turns, but he says deer.
Yeah.
So he was smart enough to, like, I'm not going to go sled into this thing. And then as it's going up the hill, I'm like, wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
We're in Idaho, and we were up in McCall. And then my other kid is up there, and he was calm, but he starts, I'm like, I was picturing that video that you see on Instagram or whatever of that deer just like taking it to someone, when they got too close. And part of what was going through my mind, I'm like, I'm somewhat athletic, but I don't know if I can get up this hill fast enough before this deer beats my kid. And so I somewhat dropped the phone because I was about to go up, because I'm like, well, I couldn't really tell from the angle I was at. But, I asked him, I'm like, were you okay? He's like, yeah. I was worried, but what was I going to do? I'm like, I would have hit that sled.
Get down the hill.
Yeah, but it was fun. It was cool.
What is your favorite thing to do just when you finally get away from Boise State? Like,
so,
are you a good cook? Are you the guy on the barbecue at the weekend? Like what?
I'm not a barbecuer. I do like cooking. I'm a mama's boy and firstborn, and so my mom taught me a lot of things as a kid, and which I'm grateful for. But it all has to do with the kids.
Yeah.
I took some time. They had school off, and obviously with the cell phone, I can still be connected and catch up on emails, calls, texts, whatever. But we went skiing, and the kids have really embraced that. And I used to ski as a kid. I didn't ski for like 30 years, and so it's not like riding a bike. But I can get up and down, and I had the best time, Jay, just skiing behind them, and seeing how they're growing and how much they've improved from last year to this year. And my wife hates it. She's never skied, and so she's like, I'm just doing this for the kids. Mm-hmm. I enjoy it, and I enjoy the social aspect. I get to see so many of our friends and then Broncos up at the ski resorts, and so we like doing that in the winter, and in the summer or the spring, and a little bit of fall. It's hard with football. We love hiking and camping. Just getting out, and I mean, this place is beautiful, and and sometimes that calms me. And I appreciate that. Probably my most favorite thing to do with the kids is weigh with clay, and if you need to take the kids, it's you sit there and it's 2 hours uninterrupted, no cell phones, and you're painting these clay things that then they end up baking. And so if you come to my office, I have all these clay things that they've made me, that they'll put their age and name on, and we just sit there and talk. And that's an important piece. You got to find that piece in the chaos.
I don't know if I'll be more impressed by anything that you say today than you do put your phone down for 2 hours when you do that.
I do, and usually it's what I don't. I'm not a big gift giver, and I don't like getting gifts. And so for Father's Day, my birthday, Christmas, that's what I always ask for. So I get gift cards to Away with Clay, and I take the 3 kids, and as they get older, they spend a little more time. The 6-year-old is like every color. He's done in 5 minutes. It's a work of art. The other kids, they take their time, and it's something that, we just enjoy doing as a family.
How did that come up?
So I want to say one of our kids had a birthday party. I want to say it was Jake Menken. His daughter had a birthday party, and he'd invited our kids.
Works at Boise State.
Works at Boise State.
Great guy.
Does a great job for us, and I'm like, wow, this is cool, and my kids loved it, and I need sometimes my brain's constantly in a sprint, and so I need that silence and just something that, like, when you're painting and it's task oriented. It calms me for whatever reason, and my days are pretty hectic, and that's okay. I love that chaos, but it helps me.
In the world of intercollegiate sports, it seems like that's important, and it's so funny because it's only speeding up. It's only getting more chaotic. I think we're all waiting on certain guardrails to form around whether it be NIL or eligibility, a number of things.
Yeah.
You're one of the, in all honesty, weirdos that seems to love it, though, and embrace it, though. I mean, you have people that have been in this forever, and they just don't like it anymore.
Correct.
And I feel like you're the type that's like, no, we'll push all the chips to the center of the table.
Correct. I think you have to be that way as we navigate the chaos. And you're absolutely right. Like, there really aren't guardrails. They're coming, and I do believe there are solutions. I'm a problem solver, and and that's something that really drives me. Like, how do we figure it out better than everyone else? And that's a point of pride. And I'm fortunate because I have teammates around me that operate the same way. It's crazy, and it's really easy to get to a negative place. Like, the reality, Jay, is I don't like necessarily what our industry's become, and I think there's, we've lost that negotiation period, and things are being forced on us. I would rather embrace the suck and define it ourselves, and I believe that's a competitive advantage. When everyone else is going left and crying, we're not going to do that. We're going to put all our chips in the middle, because what do we have to lose? I know what we represent, and I can't guarantee success, but I'm not afraid of failure. And I can live with failure if the effort's there. And that's what I've told our team, and my job is to protect and promote them. We're going to find solutions to these problems, and I'm fortunate that I have a guy like Spencer and Leon and Gordy. It's like, it's what's next. This is what it is, and we're going to find a way.
In the simplest way possible, how can you explain the benefits of the revenue sharing model that is imminent moving forward, and how that also kind of will now would seemingly overshadow like NIL or the collective or anything like that? Why is the revenue sharing model, in your opinion, beneficial moving forward?
A couple reasons. One, it gives me control as athletic director. It gives all ADs control, and not that I'm a control freak. When it comes down to it, I have a great team, like I've said, and they're empowered to do their jobs. But when you're dealing with a collective that isn't necessarily connected, and there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. You have every coach and these student athletes, and student athletes have agents. I would rather define, like, I'm big on process. That's my one word this year. We got to define better our processes, and to be able to define it in something that we can make fit us and our team and our skill set. I think will be of value to us. I think there's a positive in terms of the competitive excellence that it allows us to hopefully achieve. We've opted in, and there is no other way. It's now on us to figure out a sustainable model, but I do believe it's going to elevate us. We need to be better than everyone else we're competing with, and it doesn't mean everything's the same, and it doesn't mean we need what Texas or Ohio State have. This year proved it. But we need to find more, and us defining that process, me as the leader of a department having more control over that, I think is of value. And then, when I think about revenue share, and it gets lost in it, we are holding on for dear life in terms of this academic mission, and that's a big part of our purpose. We want to prepare student athletes for life. And think about all the opportunities, the real life experiences that we're getting to provide our student athletes, the fiscal responsibility, the financial literacy programming. When you think about doing your taxes and it's cool to go through this process with these student athletes of, yes, you got a courtesy vehicle. That's great. You will be taxed and you need to hold X amount of dollars. It's not free. There is nothing that's free in life. And to teach them that, because those are skill sets that they're going to be able to take with them. How to invest your money, not where to. I don't care what they do with it, but how to save, how to invest. Those are important things that I think we are still. It's like the academic mission existed. We're just expanding on what that looks like, and we're fortunate because Bronco Life does a tremendous job in that space, and how Bronco Pro is going to work with them, I think, still continues. We continue to hold on to our why, that we are here to prepare them for life, and obviously winning is important, but we are also here to prepare them for life.
When they talk about the revenue sharing model, it also kind of finally institutes a little bit of what would be a salary cap, right?
Right.
So if the salary cap is set at, $22.5 million or whatever they're projecting it at, what do you think Boise State's number would be? Is there any way to guess?
So we're going. There is a way to guess. Like, we're going through that process. I'm talking to a lot of ADs, and we still have I would rather us be transparent. It is what it is. You can pull our budgets. You can see what we're fundraising. I mean, I would rather be transparent. It's easier that way. There still is this competitive drive in our industry, which is important. I'm a competitor, and so a lot of people aren't sharing what those numbers are. But as I, survey the nation and look at, obviously the Ohio States, the Texas of the world, Penn State, they're going to be at the top, right? You have others that are going to be between 15 and 20. You have others that are going to be between 10 and 15. We've never had what everyone else has. We just need more than we got. I think somewhere between $5 and $10 million is a realistic number. And then how we split that up between football, men's, women's basketball, and our Olympic sport programs, I think will be important. And I think that's a competitive advantage for us. 18 sport programs matter to us, 350 plus student athletes. And how do I help Justin or Luke, or Beck? And we have unbelievable people on our team. How do I help them? How do I help Justin get a pitcher? One player for some of these programs can make a huge difference. Yep. And so I do think there's a path forward. But the other side of that, Jay, when you think about revenue share, when you're starting your fiscal year off in a deficit, and it's solely dependent upon how we monetize our operations and bridge that gap, what revenue are you sharing? That onus is on us to figure out how do we create a sustainable model and work with credit card processing companies and logistics companies and other concerts and soccer matches, and what else can we drive to our department appropriately so, and not overwhelm our team, that we can create more revenue opportunities. When Post Malone comes in, that's huge for us, right? We need 2 of those a year. Right, working through this credit card processing company that we get donors involved and it doesn't cost them anymore, and they partner with this credit card company and we get a percentage of that. How do we create those sustainable models so I'm not always out with our team out with our hands out saying we need more. I can't thank Bronco Nation enough for what they've done. I mean, they have stepped up. They have done more than they've ever done in the history of this university. And that's a testament to our people and their love and appreciation for us being the front porch and our competitiveness and how we're winning on and off the field of play. And but we still need help, and we have to bridge that gap.
So 2 questions. I want to ask you about concerts apparently here in a second, but kind of beginning with the more difficult question probably. If Bronco Nation has stepped up and helped and you need more, What is that suggesting, I guess? Where does that help
We need to figure out, when you look at our budget and how much it's grown since 2014, it's about 33%. And I've shared the data with you, and it's something that we're going to put out there at some point in terms of our football budget. $21.4 million versus.
I posted it earlier this year. You have. The coaches alone at Georgia and Ohio State make more money than it costs to fund your entire football department that won 12 games and went to a Fiesta Bowl. I'm talking about paying coaches, whatever be facilities, whatever it is. The coaches of those schools make more than it costs to run the Boise State football team for an entire year.
Correct. More than our athletic department budget for 18 sports. That's the challenge. That doesn't mean it's negative. Like, that's the opportunity for us. We don't need to get to where they're at. We proved that this year. We just need more than we got. And so what does that look like? Well, there are other buckets. It's the sustainability, and it's finding and creating new partnerships. It's, leaning on the university differently than maybe we've done in the past. It's leaning on the state, as some states do things differently than our state. Not every state's made the same, and our state's been great. Our state board has been awesome, to me, and I'm really grateful for that. But when you look at the value of 400 million plus views on social media and $21 million in advertising, and being in a state that we are the only FBS team without professional sports, we are holding a golden ticket. And my hope is, and my job, quite honestly, is to tell this story that I get people on board differently than maybe they've been on board in the past. And, it doesn't mean that we're not going to ask Bronco Nation for more. It doesn't mean that we're not going to have to reseat facilities and find ways. You've seen Tennessee, who has a lot of money, and they've added a fee to their tickets. There are ways to try to get more. We haven't increased our ticket prices in quite a while. We have to keep up with the times, because that's what it takes to continue at the level that we're at. And we need to be able to communicate and over-communicate, clearly communicate, what our expectations are, and then be held accountable to how we're spending and utilizing those funds. And that's something that we fully have embraced, and we're excited to see what's next, because I believe there's more meat on this bone.
Yeah, I guess just to bluntly ask too, I mean, you look at some of the other schools around the Mountain West in terms of maybe the assistance they get from the state or anything like that, and you compare yourself to Colorado State or a school like that, and you're significantly behind, despite constantly outperforming them, in all honesty, in most of the major, whether it be men's basketball or football. Is that a factor moving forward? I don't know how that needle moves.
I would say if that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Our job is to create solutions and get to the yeses and nos, and those aren't bad. It just means you pivot and you figure out a better way of telling that story. The onus is on us, and you're going to hear more of this as I get out and speak more on why we're doing a lot of these media, opportunities. We have a story, and we have the infrastructure. It's everything we said we were going to do, we've done, and it's worked. I shouldn't say everything. There's been mistakes along the way. We're not perfect, but the vast majority of the things we've done, we have elevated and maximized our concession sales, all-time high, sponsorship, all-time high, fundraising, all-time high, ticket sales, all-time high, attendance across multiple sports, 21 sold-out matches in soccer, all-time high. Like, that is our job. We are bar raisers, and we have to figure out solutions. My job is to present and tell that story, and that's where I see the opportunity as we move forward. The next 5 years is key for Boise State.
As long as we're talking about finances, what was the Fiesta Bowl worth to you guys? And 12-1 season, it's probably impossible to actually calculate its true worth, because to buy a 3.5 hour commercial on New Year's Eve that everybody watches, I don't even know what that would cost, right? And so that's not even factored into it. But what was the value of the Fiesta Bowl to the athletic department?
Priceless, as you said, in general, and that's something we're really proud of. You see the increases in applications and enrollment, and we believe we're a part of that. And, it's always been difficult to define what those metrics are in terms of the value of an athletic department. But we believe in what we're doing and the story it's telling and how that's impacting our institution and our community. And there are things that we're working on, like an economic impact study and other things that we can really put pen to paper. Actual dollars, when you look at, and I believe the number's out there, I believe it comes out to 6.3 million. And that's impactful for us. Obviously the more games you play and so on and so forth, but you look at last season and it's not just that, it's selling out 7 games. It's reaching, close to 9,000 donors in our drive for 10,000.
Are you at 9,000 now?
We were at the end, and then there's the renewal process, so you kind of take one step back to move 2 forward.
Yeah, but when you started this thing, your goal was 10, you were below 5. Right?
Oh, we were at, if I remember correctly, we were at about 3,500.
Because I remember specifically when you said 10,000, and
we were
I thought
at
you were a little crazy.
3,500 donors, I believe, and 31 Lyle Smiths. It was launched right before I got here.
Wow.
And we're now, I believe we went over 285 Lyle Smiths, and I think $17 million gifts. And I don't say that as, oh, good job, Jeremiah, it's more a testament to our team and celebrating what they're doing. I'm not out there due to my day-to-day, duties. I'm not the one asking always. It's our coaches, it's our staff, it's the team behind the team. I can't do this alone. It's donors. Last time I'm at the game and I'm sitting with two good friends who are also supporters of the program, and every time someone walks by, JD, do you know him? I'm gonna introduce you. JD, do you know him? And it takes a team, and that's what we need, and we can do this. We can do this. What I have to guard against is, this blue collar approach and that's who we are, and that is who I am personally, and so I appreciate that. I could not have asked for a better place to be at, Jay. That's who I am, but we cannot allow that to be used against us, that no one cares, just work harder. That is a concept, and that is how I operate, but we have to find more, and there are opportunities for that.
A big reason why you have to do that is the future lies in the Pac-12 for you guys, and it's only going to get more difficult, right?
For sure.
What is the latest on Pac-12 realignment? What can you share? Nervous at all that there hasn't been, you probably know more than I do. Well, you definitely know more than I do, but you know more than most.
Yeah.
What is the latest on Pac-12 realignment? Because you guys still need one more team for sure.
At least one more team. We've had great meetings and discussions. Octagon is doing a great job in terms of those negotiations, and I'm not nervous. I'm a ready, aim, fire type guy, and there's risk reward in every decision, and time will tell. But I don't have time to look backwards. I'm excited about what we're building, and it's so much easier, Jay, to create something new versus change something old. And when you think about what the Pac-12 is, outside of Pac-12 and the brand, everything is new. It's going to be new leadership. It's going to be, and I'm not saying changes, but like they were only leading. They all got hired they went through a tremendous amount of change when all the teams left. But new leadership for us, there's new schools and partnerships and a different level of unity that I think is important. And and I'm really excited about what that looks like in our future. We all are in agreement the next 5 years are key for all of us, and to be with like-minded individuals and who have similar competitive excellence as we do. I think that gives us a really cool opportunity moving forward. So we should have, this spring is big for us. Mm-hmm. We have another year and a half. But this spring is big. We do have to add at least one. Is it two because it helps with football scheduling? If not, then you're picking up another non-conference. All that stuff's going to work itself out. But I'm really excited about the direction and came away from those meetings in an extremely positive place that this is going to be epic one way or another, and that's our goal.
How involved is Boise State? How involved are you? How often do you guys meet, talk about the future of the Pac-12?
With the Pac-12?
Yeah.
We meet, we have a regular scheduled meeting, and there's a cadence to it. It's every other week, but there are a lot of, when you're putting a conference together, there's a lot to discuss, right? It's not just, okay, what teams and the media rights, those are big things. We do, that's part of the conversation. But then you're also talking about all right, what does the IR look like in regards to roster caps, and when you go into a season, and not as maybe a little bit for football, but when you think about practice players and whatever else, God forbid you come out of spring ball or fall ball and you lose 4 or 5 guys. Can you add people? And how do you define those expectations? We talk about stuff like that we don't necessarily have the answers. We have a lot more questions, but it's important. You get the feedback of a lot of other ADs that have been in this industry a lot longer than I have and have more experience, and what others are hearing from their counterparts. And I bring whatever information I have to the table. We talk a lot about what are people going to do with their collective? Are they going away? We talk about what other sports sponsor. Everyone thinks about football. What about gymnastics? What about volleyball? What about soccer? What about, some schools, have softball and some don't, baseball and some don't. And there's a lot that goes into building something from the ground up, and that's really exciting to me. Is there a move you would like to see made? Is there a state you want to be in? Is there a direction you want to go, a time zone? Yeah, I would say each AD has their preference. Yeah. The state of Texas is important to us, not because I'm from there, but you don't have to look too much further than Ashton Genty, and we have a lot of guys coming out of Texas, and I think that market is important to us. We have a lot of alums down there, and but the sky's the limit. That's what's so much fun about this is. I can't tell you it's going to be this school versus that school. Like, the schools that have been mentioned out there are all the same schools, and so there's nothing new to that, narrative. But we still have a lot of work to do, and and I think every AD is wanting to do what's best for he or she, and I'm fortunate we have a seat at that table.
A source told me at some point in time in the last month or so, maybe a little bit further ago than that Spencer Danielson is pretty valuable to the Boise State football program, and we've seen a lot of his assistant coaches get new contracts. At time, I heard that there was an intention to get Spencer Danielson a new one. So is there an update to lock up Spencer for a long term? And I'm not going to lie, you look at whatever wins per dollar or however you want to calculate it, he was probably the most valuable football coach in America last season.
For sure. You hit it right on the head. I couldn't have asked, I don't think our team could have asked for anything more from Spencer. He is truly a remarkable human being, and very grateful for him, and he deserves to be rewarded. And so we are close to the finish. These things take time, and it's not, because of agents or whatever else, it's process. Would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Heather Berry on our team. And, when you change the number of contracts that we did, and then there's the state board process, and if it's over a certain amount, it has to go to the board. And so really grateful for the state board and their support. It takes a team, and we're close. We're close, and I hope we get it done sooner than later. But we're locked in on a number, and we'll let you guys know that here soon.
I think the order of it is significant because all of his assistant coaches have locked up their contracts, and now Spencer's the final one, right?
Correct.
That it seemed like that was the order he wanted it to be done because he wanted to take care of his assistant coaches. Eric Chenander is now the highest paid assistant coach in school history at $550,000. All of those guys has got some type of raise, some of them significant raises. How much did that assistant salary pool increase for the football department?
So overall, it was, and not counting fringe, but it was about $650,000, and that's
that's a huge
testament.
percentage.
It is, and that's a testament, especially Jay. When I got here, we were paying coordinators like $275 or something.
Well, and I'm not going to lie. Like other things you hear is that there were. Actually, no, I can say it directly. Spencer himself actually told us on the sports bar at one point in time, 7 to 8 of his assistant coaches prior to the Fiesta Bowl were trying to be lured away by more lucrative offers at other schools. So it's not like just giving money to people. It's you trying to keep good people at Boise State the way that Spencer put it.
Well, people are our greatest asset, and you look at how he was able to hold on to the guys he did last year, and then holding on to the guys he did this year. And it doesn't mean there won't be changes. I hope not, but. That's a testament to these guys. Like the culture is so important to what we are as Broncos, and you got to really want to be a Bronco. Like every single one of those guys turned down more money going somewhere else, and top to bottom in our department, like you have a different level of commitment if you want to be a Bronco, and money it can't necessarily always be the driver. I look at Ashton.
Yeah.
You look at Cage Casey, you look at some of these guys that, there is a market for them, but the experience here and the culture and how we serve, that matters. And I think those guys appreciate that, how Spencer treats them. And I know they're grateful. And I think they, I hope to believe they appreciate what we've done. Someone told me, a mentor, a coach actually, said, JD, what coaches want is they understand, they're realistic, but they want you to feel uncomfortable. And I told Spencer that, and Spencer and I were in agreement, and it doesn't surprise me. Spencer's like, JD, we'll talk about mine, but let's get all these guys done. That's what a leader is. He's the first one onto the battlefield and the last one off. And that's who Spencer is. And so, yeah, we were able to get all those guys done. We're still working on Nate Potter. Is still working on his, and then Spencer's is about to the finish line.
I'll get you out of here on this one. Do you ever go out and look at what's going on in the north end zone and just kind of, stand there for a minute, or maybe even go ask to put on a hard hat and hammer away at something? I mean, they've been doing demolition. You knock down a wall or anything?
I have not.
Okay,
I did. I did shovel and ground, and you guys were out there for that. I'm not sure how much progress I made on the facility because I think they just moved all the dirt we moved. But it's surreal, you know, when you get to a place, and I said process earlier, when you get to a place and you have this vision, and in many ways you don't know how you're going to get there, you know, and sometimes you gotta, and I've said this before, you gotta believe more than others, you know, at various points. And when we went through that playbook for success, and you know, it's like, yeah, what's the reality of this? And the energy vampires, right? You know, I put out that devil face, and that's for the vampires, and me smiling back at them. You know, how many people told me I can't do that? You know, there's always naysayers, and that fires me up. And so when you walk out there, and I walk out there now, and I see it, and it's like, hell yes. Like this is why you do the work, and it shows progress, and it shows Bronco Nation we are not going to stop. And yes, it's not the east side, but that's coming. And if anything, we've proof is in the pudding. Like, you know, what we said we were going to do, we went out and did. And I've also said we are not stopping. In my mind, it's what's next. I quite honestly, I see it, and I'm sitting up top in Stickle and looking down, and where my mind goes is, man, we're going to have some open space this next season. How do we add some premium options down there to give more field access? You know, we have a very large field because of the track, and that's something hopefully we'll remedy with the east side and maybe pull that in. And you know, but where can we maybe create some more revenue opportunities for us to continue to pour back and invest in this department? And what do we need to do on that east side? And oh yeah, what about extra mile? Like, my mind's always going, and I'm fortunate because I have people in that foxhole with me that they're feeling the same way. Nate and Cody and Jordan and all these guys, they're doing a tremendous job with the north end zone, and appreciate Anderson and their leadership through it. And you know, we're on track, and you know, I don't believe the weather's slowing us down much. I think when they went down, and it's amazing when you start digging what's under there. And like one of the, you know, some pipe got crushed or something, you know, and it wasn't no one did anything wrong. It's just between the movement of dirt and whatever, and it was old and it just crushed. And so like those things are going to happen, but that's part of the process, and you know, and we enjoy that. So.
Jeremiah, been an awful lot of fun. Drive by Boise State right now. It's cool to see the massive crane in the air. It's going to be there for a while, right?
It will. It will. Now, I'm not sure on season. You know, I saw a bunch of Broncos on social like saying, oh, we should leave it up and do what Vandy did. And our goal is to be able to get the team from the locker room down there, make sure it's safe for the guys to play, and then are there opportunities that we can you know, take advantage of, considering that space is going to be open. The blue is powerful, and if we can provide more access, I think that will be fun.
There's so much going on right now, not only with collegiate sports, but obviously at Boise State. Maybe we can make this a little bit of a regular thing, JD.
I would love to, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Go Broncos.
All right. Appreciate it, Jeramiah Dickey, Boise State Athletic Director. This is Jay Sports Bar, serving the Idaho sports community.